picture going around online this month. It claims to show a screenshot. It shows Donald Trump touching a glowing orb with two Middle Eastern-looking men. Well, last month, President Trump did just that with the King of Saudi Arabia and the President of Egypt.
The Simpsons is undoubtedly one of the most beloved yet controversial shows in American television history.
We are going to keep on trying to strengthen the American family, to make American families a lot more like the Waltons and a lot less like the Simpsons.
Millions know of Bart, Homer, and Springfield, but few know that Fox once tried to bury an episode deemed too daring, too provocative, and too dangerous.
Is that the iconic TV show eerily predicted the outbreak of the coronavirus.
This is the untold story of the Simpsons episode the network never wanted to air. The birth of the Simpsons and Fox's early turmoil. Television in the late 1980s was a ruthless battlefield, and Fox was barely surviving. The network was still fragile and desperately struggling to make a name for itself in a world ruled by ABC, NBC, and CBS. It had few affiliates, tiny budgets, and an image that suggested it might vanish at any moment. Industry insiders, advertisers, and viewers all doubted Fox could ever compete. There was constant tension at the network, a sense of fear that failure was always just around the corner. Every show that bombed, every time ratings dipped, it felt like Fox might be erased from the television map forever. In this desperate situation, the network needed something shocking, something bold, something that could grab attention and pull viewers in fast. At the same time, money was tight. They needed a hit that could be produced cheaply. This pressure created a dangerous mix of fear and ambition inside Fox's executives, forcing them to take risks no established network would consider. That search led them to The Tracey Ullman Show, a quirky sketch comedy hosted by the British comedian. The show itself was not a huge success. Its audience was small and inconsistent. Critics mostly ignored it. But within the show, there were small, strange, animated shorts created by a cartoonist named Matt Groening. Groening had been thinking about adapting his Life in Hell comics for television, but he was also worried about losing control over his work. In a moment of quick thinking, he drew a completely new creation. A dysfunctional, messy, imperfect family called The Simpsons. These short, rough, bizarre cartoons were unlike anything people had seen. They were funny in an unpredictable way, but also unsettling and shocking.
Please return us to
dinner time. Hey, get a load of that spread.
Here you go, Earthlings. Take all you want, but...
The characters were flawed, the humor was sharp, and the world they lived in felt twisted, yet oddly familiar. Fox executives noticed the audience reaction. People were laughing and talking about it, and it was clear the shorts were connecting with viewers. Encouraged by this unexpected response, Fox made a decision that would shock the television world. They ordered a full half-hour animated series based on these shorts. Groening had no experience producing a television animation, but Fox gambled anyway. This was a radical move. Since the 1960s, no animated show for adults had succeeded in a primetime slot. The networks believed cartoons were for children, not adults. Yet Fox was so unstable, so desperate to make a mark, that it had nothing to lose. The Simpsons premiered in December 1989. What happened next shocked everyone. Ratings exploded beyond anything Fox had ever seen. Young audiences, which networks had been struggling to capture for years, were suddenly glued to the show. The Simpsons disrupted everything. It mocked conventional sitcoms, made fun of family life in ways that were raw and unflinching, and seemed to reflect reality more sharply than anything else on television. Fox suddenly had its first true hit, a cultural phenomenon that gave the fledgling network instant legitimacy.
I'll take some white meat and stuffing to go and send up the pumpkin pie in about 20 minutes.
I said no!
Mom, do I have to?
But this success also created fear. The network was still fragile and insecure. Executives worried that the show's bold, sarcastic, and irreverent humor could drive away advertisers who had just started trusting Fox. The Simpsons was loud, critical, and unapologetic. It did not sugarcoat life or family. It was messy, chaotic, and at times disturbing. The very thing that made it successful also made it a potential threat to the network itself. Advertisers were nervous, critics were cautious, viewers were divided. Fox had taken a gamble, and now it was clear that this gamble could either make them untouchable or destroy them entirely. That tension set the stage for the early wave of backlash that threatened both the show's reputation and the network's survival. The first moral panic, parents, teachers, politicians, and the early war on The Simpsons. As The Simpsons exploded into American living rooms, it did more than entertain. It stirred fear, anger, and outrage on a scale no animated show had ever faced before. The family at the center of the chaos was messy, loud, and reckless. Bart was a troublemaker, constantly defying authority. Homer was careless, lazy, and prone to selfish decisions. Marge struggled to hold her household together, and Lisa challenged the status quo with her intelligence. The humor was sharp, biting, and merciless, often targeting institutions, traditions, and cultural norms that Americans had been taught to respect without question. In a television world where families were always perfect, polite, and safe, The Simpsons was a shocking disruption. Parents and educators reacted first, and the response was fierce. Bart Simpson quickly became a lightning rod for controversy. His rebellious catchphrases, "Eat my shorts" and "Don't have a cow, man," were seen not as harmless jokes but as dangerous challenges to authority and discipline. Schools panicked. Over 50 school districts banned Bart Simpson shirts, lunchboxes, and other merchandise, arguing that the character encouraged misbehavior. Educators complained that children were repeating Bart's language at school and acting out in ways that disrupted classrooms. Some principals and school boards publicly criticized Fox, calling the network irresponsible for broadcasting a show they believed actively harmed children's development and moral judgment. Politicians soon joined the chorus, amplifying the cultural firestorm. In the 1990s, then U.S. First Lady Barbara Bush gave an interview calling The Simpsons the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Her words hit national headlines, sparking outrage and debate. The show responded cleverly with a handwritten letter from Marge Simpson, playfully defending the family and poking fun at the criticism. Even the First Lady humorously acknowledged the letter, creating a brief moment of reconciliation. But the controversy was far from over. In the 1992, then U.S. President George H.W. Bush publicly stated that American families should be a lot more like the Waltons and a lot less like The Simpsons. His remark was not just a joke, it was a pointed cultural warning framing The Simpsons as a symbol of moral decay, chaos, and the erosion of traditional family values. The show had become a target in the nation's political and moral debates.
The American family, to make American families a lot more like the Waltons and a lot less like the Simpsons.
Media critics and religious groups piled on. Newspapers accused the show of spreading disrespect, cynicism, and anti-authoritarian attitudes among children. Religious organizations condemned it for its portrayal of marriage, drinking, and religion. Every episode seemed to spark new debate, but while adults scolded and condemned, children and teenagers adored the show. Its popularity soared, turning outrage into free publicity. Every ban, every angry editorial, every scolding remark from a politician drew more attention and more viewers. The Simpsons had become a cultural juggernaut, unstoppable, irresistible, and terrifying to the gatekeepers of moral authority. This constant tug-of-war put Fox in an impossible position. On one hand, they finally had a show that could deliver massive ratings and attract the young viewers advertisers desperately wanted. On the other hand, the show invited relentless criticism from some of the most powerful voices in the country. Fox had to walk a knife's edge, deciding whether to protect its brand by toning down the show or to embrace the chaos and let the writers push boundaries. And that tension only deepened when the writers introduced a story that confronted sexuality, prejudice, and identity topics that would soon lead Fox to reject an entire episode. The episode Fox blocked, Homer's phobia, and the network's internal panic. By the mid-1990s, The Simpsons had grown into a cultural landmark. People everywhere knew the family, laughed at their chaos, and debated their behavior. Yet behind the scenes, Fox remained tense, uneasy, and cautious. The network had survived earlier controversies, but executives were constantly afraid of content that could provoke another major backlash. Ratings were important, but reputation and advertiser trust were even more important. The network had a hit show, but it was still walking a dangerous line between popularity and scandal. This tension came to a head with one of the show's most important and daring episodes, Homer's phobia. The writers wanted to confront homophobia head-on. They planned a story in which Homer becomes friends with John, a flamboyant, openly gay shop owner voiced by filmmaker John Waters. The episode combined humor, satire, and genuine empathy.
Oh, I've got the exact same curtain bathroom. Didn't you just die when you found these?
Not really. They just had corn on them.
It aimed to show Homer's discomfort and prejudice, but also his growth, using comedy to expose how ridiculous and harmful bigotry could be. The staff in the writers' room were excited. They saw the episode as funny, bold, and socially meaningful. They believed it could entertain viewers while making a strong cultural statement. But when the script reached Fox's Standards and Practices department, the reaction was shock, panic, and alarm. In the 1990s, American culture was still deeply divided around LGBTQ issues. Television networks approached these topics with extreme caution, fearing boycotts, protests, and lost advertising. Fox was no different. Many executives worried that conservative local affiliates would refuse to air the episode. Others feared protests from religious organizations or watchdog groups that monitored immoral content. The network's fears were intense. They did not just question individual jokes, they questioned the very existence of an episode that portrayed a gay character sympathetically. The censor's memo was harsh, clear, and intimidating. Every reference to gay was flagged. Jokes about homosexuality were labeled unacceptable. The memo ended with a blunt, unyielding statement. The episode was inappropriate and could not be broadcast in its current form. The network's warning was unmistakable. Fox was signaling that while satire, social critique, and chaos could be tolerated, any sympathetic depiction of a gay character crossed a dangerous line. But the writers refused to abandon the episode. They quietly continued the production, recording voices and animating sequences, hoping that the network's rigid stance might change. Their persistence paid off, but in a surprising and unpredictable way. The censor who had originally rejected the script left the position. The new standards executive reviewed the completed episode, understood its artistic and social value, and approved it for broadcast without major changes. The change in leadership had transformed the network's reaction from outright rejection to cautious acceptance, proving how fragile and arbitrary Fox's control could be. When Homer's Phobia aired in 1997, the episode was an immediate critical triumph. Reviewers praised its sharp humor, its honesty, and its humanity.
No, I'm not, Marge. They're embarrassing me. They're embarrassing America. They turned the Navy into a floating joke.
Audiences recognized that it was daring, insightful, and socially relevant, yet still funny. The success highlighted the power of the writer's creative vision. However, this wasn't the last time the show faced resistance. Outside America, the series sparked even fiercer reactions, often from entire nations who saw themselves reflected in ways they didn't appreciate. A global lightning rod, international backlash, and the worldwide battles over The Simpsons. As The Simpsons expanded beyond the United States, it reached audiences around the world, and its humor began to take on new, unexpected, and sometimes explosive meanings. Jokes that felt playful and harmless to American viewers often landed differently overseas. What was seen as satire in one country could feel like a personal attack, an insult, or even a threat to national pride in another. Australia's reaction to the 1990 episode Bart vs. Australia became one of the earliest examples of international outrage. In the episode, Bart travels to Australia, and the humor portrays the country as backward, rude, and eccentric. Australian newspapers erupted in condemnation, claiming the episode was insulting and unfair. Politicians joined the fray, publicly criticizing Fox for the negative depiction. The debate became a national story, turning a cartoon into a cultural flashpoint. Brazil's reaction to Blame It on Lisa was far more intense and dramatic.
The government just painted them bright colors so the tourists wouldn't be offended. Works for me. Yeah, check out the rats.
The 2002 episode depicted Rio de Janeiro as chaotic, dangerous, and crime-ridden. Brazilian officials immediately denounced the portrayal as offensive and harmful to the country's image, particularly tourism. The Rio de Janeiro Tourism Board considered filing a lawsuit against Fox, claiming that the episode spread false and damaging stereotypes about the city. The controversy grew so heated that the episode was withheld from broadcast in Brazil for several years, effectively silencing the satire in a market of millions. Japanese audiences reacted with anger to 30 Minutes Over Tokyo, an episode that included jokes about Japanese culture, the Yakuza, and even a gag referencing Emperor Akihito. Japanese broadcasters refused to air the episode, citing cultural disrespect and concern over national sensitivities. Other countries enforced similar restrictions. Germany removed episodes containing Nazi references, fearing public backlash, while several Middle Eastern nations censored scenes showing alcohol, pork, or depictions of religious figures deemed inappropriate. Each action reinforced the idea that humor crossing cultural lines could spark outrage, censorship, or both. China's response was among the most severe. An episode called Gu Gu Gai Pan, which referenced censorship and even alluded to Tiananmen Square, was immediately blocked. Later, Chinese authorities issued a sweeping media decree that barred foreign animated shows from airing during primetime hours. While the ban officially applied to all foreign cartoons, observers widely interpreted it as a direct response to The Simpsons and other Western animated programs. These international reactions revealed something striking. The Simpsons had become far more than an American sitcom. It had evolved into a global commentator, sometimes unintentionally, sometimes forcefully. Countries saw themselves through the show's irreverent lens, and in many cases, they found the reflection distorted, unflattering, or outright offensive. What had started as a rebellious, messy family in Springfield was now a worldwide cultural phenomenon, capable of provoking governments, public outrage, and intense debate on multiple continents.
Thank God. Gonna take another minute in this hellhole.
Yet even as international controversies raged, the most dramatic challenges for the show were still ahead. A national tragedy in the United States would soon shake television standards to their core, forcing Fox and The Simpsons to confront limits on what could be shown at all. When tragedy redefined comedy, 9/11 and The Simpsons' sudden boundaries. The attacks of September 11, 2001 created a level of shock and terror that reshaped American life instantly. Nearly 3,000 people were killed as 2 hijacked airliners struck the Twin Towers, another hit the Pentagon, and a fourth crashed into a Pennsylvania field after passengers fought back. Millions watched live as both towers burned, people jumped from upper floors, and the buildings collapsed into a massive cloud of fire, steel, and pulverized concrete. The country was traumatized, and the entertainment world was forced into immediate self-censorship. Comedy that relied on destruction or urban chaos no longer seemed harmless. The Simpsons, a show built on exaggeration and disaster-based humor, suddenly had to rethink what it could show. One of the clearest casualties was the episode The City of New York vs. Homer Simpson from 1990. The episode used the World Trade Center as a comedic backdrop, even featuring Homer going inside the towers and becoming frustrated while trying to retrieve his car. Those scenes were meant to be absurd. After 9/11, they became painful. The towers were no longer symbols of a stressful city. They were sites of mass death, collapsed stairwells, trapped civilians, burned bodies, and first responders crushed under debris. Fox reacted immediately and pulled the episode from syndication. Many networks refused to air it at all. For years, it remained a banned piece of television because the images were too close to the real horror people had just witnessed. The re-evaluation did not end with that episode. Fox began reviewing every Simpsons scene involving airplanes, explosions, tall buildings, or terrorism-related themes. Anything that could trigger grief or anger was removed or edited. In some episodes, only a few seconds of footage changed. In others, entire scenes disappeared. The goal was not political correctness. It was trauma management. Viewers were grieving, and Fox was unwilling to risk provoking outrage or reopening emotional wounds. Another affected episode was Marge vs. the Monorail. It originally included a joke showing a building bursting into flames. The shot was not related to terrorism, but after 9/11, any sudden destruction on screen felt too raw. Several broadcasts quietly edited the moment out, and Fox's internal notes warned against anything that resembles urban catastrophe. In one sequence, a news helicopter circles a chaotic Springfield scene. The show originally played this for laughs, but helicopter coverage of burning skyscrapers had become a real national trauma. Networks temporarily removed similar shots because they too closely resembled live footage from September 11th, where news helicopters filmed the burning towers and the collapse that followed. Even small jokes were reconsidered. If a character made fun of New York's skyline, mocked its buildings, or referenced its density, Fox reviewed it for tone. A harmless joke from 1993 could now carry an emotional weight it was never intended to have. In many cases, jokes stayed, but only after strict legal and emotional review. This new scrutiny was not anything like the moral panic of the early 1990s, when parents complained about cartoons influencing children. This was different. This was a country processing mass death, fear, and vulnerability. The Simpsons had spent years joking about disaster, destruction, and civic incompetence. Now those themes resembled real pain. Inside Fox, the Standards and Practices Department became more aggressive than at any point in the show's history. Editors reviewed episodes frame by frame. Scenes involving high-rise buildings were flagged. Anything involving airline travel was flagged. Anything involving characters falling from buildings was flagged. The network was determined to avoid even unintentional reminders of that day. Over time, the city of New York versus Homer Simpson slowly returned to syndication. Some stations aired it unedited, others modified it slightly, but the tone had changed. What was once slapstick now felt like a historical artifact from a world that no longer existed. People watching it often felt a mix of nostalgia and discomfort because the context of every scene had shifted forever. This new sensitivity, however, did not stop fans from creating darker theories. As the internet grew, online communities began insisting that The Simpsons had hidden messages and disturbing secrets that never aired on television. These claims were false, but they spread quickly because people were now primed to look for danger and meaning in places they previously never questioned. The obsession with lost Simpsons. The most famous of these myths was Dead Bart. According to the legend, Groening had created a deeply disturbing early episode in which Bart dies in a plane crash. The story claimed the episode featured grotesquely realistic depictions of mourning, decaying animation, and even a chilling list of future death dates for other characters. Fans insisted that Fox had buried the episode, forbidding anyone involved from ever speaking of it. Corrupted video files, distorted clips, and incomplete animations were said to be fragments of the forbidden episode. The tale was entirely fictional, but it resonated deeply. Secretive corporate control, forbidden content, and eerie symbolism made it feel believable to an audience already accustomed to controversy and pulled episodes. As the myth spread, videos analyzing supposed evidence multiplied. Some creators fabricated short, unsettling clips. Others built elaborate theories explaining why Fox would hide such material. Online communities treated the legend as a cultural puzzle, blending fiction, speculation, and collective storytelling. Even after repeated debunking, Dead Bart persisted, evolving into a symbolic artifact of internet folklore, representing the darker curiosity surrounding a show otherwise known for its bright colors and humor. Other myths followed quickly. Fans claimed there were episodes showing the entire Simpson family dying, episodes predicting real-world tragedies, and episodes too psychologically disturbing to ever air. Early animation mistakes, pulled content, and minor edits became proof of hidden darkness. The sheer number and persistence of these legends revealed something deeper. Audiences were obsessed not just with the show itself, but with the idea that something shadowy lurked beneath its cheerful surface. The internet amplified this fascination, transforming small mysteries into sprawling digital folklore that blurred the line between reality and fantasy. The show itself eventually acknowledged the phenomenon. In 2018, the season premiere Bart's Not Dead referenced the creepypasta directly, signaling that the writers were aware of their strange reputation in online myth-making. These digital myths revealed a final truth. Even after decades of censorship, political backlash, global controversies, and national tragedy, fans preferred to imagine The Simpsons as something darker, more secretive, and more subversive than it ever was. The internet had transformed the show into a canvas for modern folklore, a fitting evolution for a series that had spent decades satirizing society, politics, and every institution it touched. Today, The Simpsons continues to run. Its core cast, now older but still iconic, carries the voices of the characters that made them famous, preserving the essence of Springfield for new generations. Careers have evolved, but the gravitational pull of the show remains strong. That enduring presence, decades after Fox nearly shelved one of its most daring episodes, has only intensified fascination with its secrets, myths, and mysteries. The Simpsons lives on, vibrant and untouchable, while the legends built around it continue to grow, proving that even in a world of full disclosure and instant information, shadows can persist and imagination can thrive. Thank you for staying with us to the end. Kindly subscribe to the channel for more amazing videos.